Assistant Professor in the Institute for Studies in Industrial Development, New Delhi. So today we have Professor S.K. Aggarwal as our speaker for the special lecture. Let me briefly introduce Professor Aggarwal for the benefit of the audience. Professor Aggarwal completed his PhD from the Kent State University, USA. Before joining the University of Delhi as Associate Professor, he taught at the University of Akron, Kent State University, and Bowling Green State University in USA, and Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. At Delhi University, he worked as the head of the Department of Geography, faculty advisor at the Delhi School of Economics, as provost, member of the Academic Council, University Court, and chairman of the World University Health Services. After his retirement in 2008, Professor Aggarwal was awarded Distinguished UGC Emeritus Fellow and visiting faculty at the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He also worked as an fellow at the Institute of Economic Growth from 2016 to 2018 and continued to work in academic and selection committees of national universities, institutes, UGC and ICSSR. This year, Professor Aggarwal received the Lifetime Achievement Award of the German Society of Geography for his contribution to international understanding of the subject. He was invited by the Voss Foundation to receive the award in Frankfurt on September 19, 2023. In his award speech, Professor Aggarwal discussed the shifting global order and place of India in the emerging change. In this lecture, he will share a few key insights that would benefit the larger audience. So participants, before we start the lecture, I request that please raise your questions after the lecture is over. Now, without further ado, I now call upon our distinguished speaker to enrich us with his lecture. Over to you, sir.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. It's really a pleasure to be with the old students and friends, colleagues, and so on. First of all, let me thank Shabana, who would make it possible to share my thoughts, what I spoke in Germany. And also my thanks to Surya for a nice introduction. And well, students always say good words. Now, before I come to the topic, now this award in Germany, it's a geography award, sort of, but of mutual understanding, of global understanding. And they want for this award to make a speech which is global in nature. As throughout my life, I have been, my professional career, a urban and social geographer or medical geographer. So I thought that what to speak about. It was a dilemma to me. But then I thought myself as a global citizen and rooted in India to share something what is happening around me and what I am seeing. And that's the reason that I chose this particular topic, Reimagining India in a Changing Global Order. Now the title is slightly not confusing, but just slightly innovative, that how I reimagine India, that which comes as latter part. First is the changing global order. If the world is changing and I see India is also emerging a big power, so where do I place India in that order? Do we have a potential? Do we have a certain constraints in becoming global power, or in this order, changing global order, we have a certain place or not? That was the larger kind of theme in my mind when I chose this topic. Now, let me start with, as I see the global order which is changing. But I find the world is at an inflection point. After transitioning from bipolarity to unipolarity in the closing decades of the last century, the world has drifted towards multipolarity. In an era of rapidly shifting balance of power, the US, China, and European Union are significant poles. But Russia, Japan, and India are playing a crucial role in shaping the emerging world order. Well, this is an extraordinary moment for India to secure a strong power position as it navigates a geopolitical landscape in flux. It's well recognized that China and India will be indispensable powers, whether they rise democratically and respect human rights or not. Both countries have some not good record. More recently, some Western powers are approaching global issues largely from market and geopolitical perspective, and human rights are either ignored or get a decorative coverage. That's my general feeling, what I see in the world. It's very rarely we talk about democracy, but we have double standards. I mean, the West has double standards. Well, in my view, there are 5 main reasons for the shift in world order. 1, emerging economies wise in shifting power. Many mid-income and emerging economies are asserting themselves independently or collectively as global South to have their voice in global affairs linked to trade, rising debt, economic prosperity, technology transfer, peace resolutions, regional conflicts, and food and energy security. China and India, second and fifth biggest economies of the world, are also competing for geopolitical space in emerging new world order. The catchphrase, the 21st century belongs to Asia, has meaning and relevance in that present context. Likewise, the West is concerned about food, energy, geopolitical security, climate change, war or conflict or climate change refugees, and growing radicalism and terrorism. West is now seeking solutions with multilateralism and global South cooperation, which was not the case if you look maybe 10 years or 15 years back, but now they feel that we have to go along with the developing countries. Second reason I find are the rising conflict. The world is more divided and fragmented now than ever, as conflicts of different nature occupy world's great attention and resources. Can you please show the second slide? Shabana, second slide.
Hello, Surya.
Second. Yeah, second, next one. Next one.
Yes, sir. One minute, sir.
Is it there?
Yes, sir. Just a minute,
Okay.
sir.
So yeah, that's okay. Good. According to Global Peace Index report of 2023, conflicts are becoming more internationalized, with 91 countries now involved in some form of external conflict. Deaths from global conflict increased by 96% to 238,000 in 2022. Impact of violence on the global economy increased by $1 trillion to a record $17.5 trillion. This is equivalent to 13% of global GDP. Impact of war on Ukraine is estimated around $449 billion. Just look at the startling figure that how much we are spending on the conflicts and wars, rather than on the human development. The total military spending increased by 17% since 2008, with the largest increase coming from China, which is $180 billion, US $70 billion, and India $40 billion. And slide, दूसरी slide. You can take off this slide. Growing tensions, war between two rival support powers, US and China, over trade and tech restrictions, pre-sea trade routes, South China Sea, Taiwan, sovereignty and strategic power to Russia over Ukraine war are other reasons for global order shift and new alignments. Recent, I will say, the Israel and Hamas conflict has further divided the world, as I see, as a north and south. Third, the threat of nationality or weak globalization, protectionism, and majoritarianism. So these are other reasons that we have the conflict or the shift in the world power. Globalization and operating of economic brought world more closer. However, under growing protectionism, nationalism, and economic sanctions regime, this global transformation process through international trade is under threat now. Functional democracies are becoming populist autocratic regimes. Rule of law, value systems, and human rights, so essential for human dignity, are getting compromised. Nationalism, majoritarianism, social fragmentation, racial and ethnic conflicts are on surge and destabilizing political systems. Demographic, third reason. Fourth is a demographic shift. Demographic shift is characterized by falling birth rates, contracting young and working age population, swelling elderly cohorts, and need for unwelcome skilled foreign immigrants to fill the growth gap. This shift is affecting production and consumption relations in the economies of the West, China, and many upper middle income countries. Massive forced migration from conflict zones, climate refugees, and communities affected by human rights violations and excesses of authoritarian regimes is causing resettlement problem for unwilling recipient countries. In Europe and elsewhere, this kind of population shift results in tenuous relations between the migrants and natives, and also between countries of origin and destination. The fifth reason which I find is a very different reason, that which is not a typical one. I call it a technological shift. On the other hand, recent technological evolutions, particularly in the West, has initiated a transformative era characterized by evolution of Industry 4.0, Web 3.0, and Genetics 2.0. So these are the upgradation that if we look at the Industrial Revolution, we start in the 18th or 19th century, which was propelled by steam engine, and second came the petrol and so on. So these revolutions, Industrial Revolution, were driven by the energy. And now the fourth revolution of Industrial Revolution is driven by information sharing. So those who can share the information across the production systems they are more efficient and they are more productive. And those who are not, so they are behind. So that's why India is slightly behind in the industrial revolution, because we have not reached the industrial revolution stage 4. We are still, I think, in stage 2. Likewise, in web, also we call it Web 3.0. We start with internet, and gradually now you see the Internet of Things, and everything is going through the information age to the web. So this is called Web 3.0. And likewise, genetics, that the DNA and all this, the new ways of treating the diseases by sequencing of the DNA and other things. So then you can say, so it is an era of artificial intelligence, quantum compounding, robotics, crypto technologies, and human genome projects. This typically refers to innovations and impact of digital technology on society. Paradoxically, it is disrupting traditional industries and job market. People have different views. This has led to job displacement and wage inequality. Another concern is compromise with privacy and data security, and conflicts rise over surveillance data breaches and individual rights. As you know, that there was a lot of talk about Pegasus, which was spying on certain leaders and in different countries. So they were spying, cybercrime, a kind of thing. So these are becoming also a source of conflict across the countries or across the regions. Many elections have been compromised by this particular process. So there are good things, but there are bad things as well. Now, what I see out of all this, a new global order which is emerging. To resolve emerging issues at global and regional scale, there are existing economic, military, geopolitical alignments like NATO, OECD, USMCA, ASEAN, OPEC, and European Union. These are existing kind of arrangements you can say, working together for different reasons. Over the years, a kind of trust deficit is growing, and the countries are reorienting or expanding the existing arrangements. They are not happy with them, so they are changing them. Considering the dominance of global powers like US or the West, weaponization of dollar, rising trade deficits, continuing poverty and income inequality, regional conflicts, global and regional alignments were becoming less accommodative and effective to address and resolve such emerging issues. So they were not resolving the issues, rather they were creating more. Over the last few years, particularly after the financial crisis of 2008 and more recent COVID pandemic, a new global order is emerging. I will add even the Israel and Hamas conflict as well into this. Developing countries in particular are forging new alliances or aligning with the existing ones to make them more participatory, resilient, and inclusive, with a soft touch rather than being coercive or punitive. Like mostly United States as a hard power in trading countries have been coercive or punitive if they don't follow their own path. For example, you can say economic sanctions on China or Russia. So these are the coercive and punitive ways that if some country do not stand with you. The recently concluded G20 summit in New Delhi is a good example of this multilateral approach to address the global issues. G2021, BRICS, Quad, China Development Bank, Belt and Road Initiative of China, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, East Asia Summit, and Five Eyes are some new global and regional alliances and partnerships. So now, as I said before, like NATO and others, these were old, and these are the new alliances which are emerging. I will focus now on G20, a major alliance of high and middle income economies, and European Union. that covers nearly 2/3 of world population, 75% of international trade, and 85% of global economic output. Equally important is BRICS, but I'm not discussing it here as a state of time, but it has a wider relevance for global South, whereas G20 is a mixture of developing countries and the developed countries. So, but to me, I think if you ask me, for me, the BRICS is more important because the South gets strengthened by the BRICS. And the last meeting was in South Africa, and where it expanded to many countries more. And many countries are requesting, developing countries are requesting to join BRICS. Anyhow, but I thought that since G20 happened recently in India, so I thought to share a little bit on this. The G20 or 21, as one country has or group has been added, or group of 20 is an international forum consisting of 19 individual countries and the European Union. African Union was also added a new member at recent Delhi summit. G20 got established with expansion of G7 group, I think most of you know, to include representative developing countries and includes the original BRICS after the financial crisis of 1999 and 2008. That is the origin of this. All 5 top economies of the world, including 3 from Asia, belong to this group. That's why that's important. Now I say something about my observations about G20, which happened in Delhi. G20 summit was organized at New Delhi during September 9-10 with focus on sustainable growth, human-centric approach, climate change, debt relief, food security, and global and current global issues like war in Ukraine and related food energy securities. It was attended by most heads of state except China and Russia. Various ministerial meetings ranging from finance to trade were arranged in 60 cities of India, but without a joint statement. That was not appreciated by some. Delhi summit came in the background of recent BRICS summit in South Africa with presence of China and expanded alliance. China participated, Russia participated in the BRICS in Johannesburg, but did not participate in India. I see some specific reasons. To me, looks like China considers when US and India and West are together that it should not participate because their own hegemony and their own importance gets reduced. That was one reason that China and Russia has their own reason that Putin may be arrested that if he comes, so that he did not participate. But China knowingly avoided it to be not humiliated by the West. Now next slide, please, slide 3. Shabana, can you show the slide 3? Yeah. Yes.
The next slide.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Now, I say something about what are the major takeaways rather than discussing about G20, which I think most of us are aware, how it was a big event for India to celebrate, no doubt. But well, it was a kind of regular turn that which every country receives, but we made a big show of that. That is typical of Indians. Well, the major takeaways, which I say, one is regarding to power shift. The summit held a new world order and a new era of international cooperation, growing dominance of global South, and rebalancing of power in absence of China and Russia. Now, I think that was a good opportunity for India to emerge in the nations of global power. Because otherwise China dominates, and probably that was, you can say, a surprise thing for India to be dominant in the absence of China, not in Russia, but I would say China in particular. Well, second thing which I find in terms of our shift, the West, in particular US, wanted to showcase India as a leader of the South to leverage its gains against China's absence. So they took the best opportunity of making India shine so that they can project that India is among the major powers. Then other major achievements was a joint declaration assured strong legitimacy of the club, because everyone was talking that they may not be a joint declaration because to condemn to condemn Russia will be difficult. But anyhow, I think with the good offices of Indonesia and South Africa, a joint declaration was possible. So that gave the legitimacy for the club of G20. Second, I will say granting permanent membership of African Union, assuring global South footprint. It has been going on for some time, but I think the present government, Narendra Modi's government, played a vital role into this to align the African Union as a part of G20. So I think that made a strong impact of the global South. Third achievement, I will say launch of an economic corridor linking India with Europe through Middle East to expand land and sea connectivity for trade and energy flow. This, I think, was considered as a counter to China BRI, Belt Road and Road Initiative, because the West was feeling left out and China was becoming a soft power in the world because of this road and belt or the sea routes, the infrastructure development, the ports and so on, in all over the world, Latin America, Asia, Africa, and so on. And they were giving money and to their own people, employment, etc., which became a very big popular thing. But at the same time, there were some problems like with Sri Lanka and Tanzania that who cannot pay, and they were highly indebted. And there are, negative points, no doubt. But nevertheless, China played it as a big role as a soft power, not as a hard power like United States. So that way it was appreciated, and so that we have an alternative. But let me say, interestingly, that this new war between Israel and Hamas or Palestine has slightly put this initiative on the back burner. The reason being, major financing was going to come from Saudi Arabia, United States, and India, and Saudi Arabia and UAE. So now, because of the war in the Middle East, so they are not talking terms, they are not working on this particular initiative. Maybe it will take time, but as the enthusiasm was that it will be a contrary to the China's BRI, so I think it will take time as long as this conflict is there. It is on the back burner. Then India's achievement, as I said before, that it looks like emerging global power to stand against China is very clear. That as the Western countries are, you can say, cooperating with India. Second, political event for India and Prime Minister Modi becoming a poster boy. That was a big kind of observation, that whenever people saw the posters of our Prime Minister, so they say that he has become our poster boy. Third, showcasing Indian culture with a Hindu nation face as a soft power. That what Indian civilization is, that was showcased in a big way. So these were the, I will say, major three achievements of India. Now, to conclude this first part of my speech, the picture that emerges is of a world in which the West lacks sufficient economic, military, or ideological clout to force the rest of the world to pick up a side. Countries now prefer to advance their own goals and interests rather than pledging alliance to the superpowers. As the age of America as a sole superpower fades, the old era when countries had to choose from a mix menu of alliances is shifting into a more fluid a la carte order. Let me expand a bit. What I mean by this is that a corollary of this, when you go to a restaurant and you have a menu, some restaurants have a menu which is fixed. So this is why I call price mix. It's a fixed price. It is a thali, or it's some other kind of combination, or it's a Rajasthani or a South Indian. So you don't have much of a choice. So you have to take from the combined food, the menu. Second is that you can pick up whatever you want. So that is the la carte menu. So now in which, you can say, okay, I want shahi paneer, I want some other vegetable, and then some mixed vegetable or dal. So this is your choice. You make your own thali. So that's how now the countries are doing that. They are picking up the alliances that where should join. Should I join BRICS? Should I join G20? Should I join some other alliance of African Union and so on? So there is a choice now. Earlier, there was no choice. Only the superpowers you have to align with United States or Soviet Union, or now with China. So that way, this is a good time that we have a choice. Middle powers may not be big enough to shape the international order, but their ambition is to increase their relevance. A new world order is lurching into motion, even though it may seem a bit confusing and a bit chaotic. Now, the second part of my speech is, I look at India's potential and constraint in becoming a global power. So we may say a lot that I think we proclaim that we are the Vishwaguru and so on, all these kind of things are said. But we have to look them closely and see what our strengths are, what our constraints are. And only then we can say that what is good for us. Well, under the backdrop of, yes, that's right. Under the backdrop of this shifting global order and concluded India's presidency of G20, we look at the perspective where India stands in the evolving global order. We examine India's potentiality and constraints in becoming a global power in shaping world order. Our next question is, how do we reimagine India in its new role to achieve its place in new order, considering its potentials and constraints? Yes, this slide is fine. First, I look at the advantages and potentialities that which India has to become a global power. Well, India has great potential to achieve a major power status, considering many contributions and achievements in diverse fields. India's rich cultural heritage, including classical music and dance, architectural marvels like Taj Mahal, and traditional folk arts, spicy cuisine, yoga, and Bollywood film industry and cricket that promotes cultural ties and fosters goodwill globally as a soft power. I call it a soft power. India boasts of demographic dividend while huge young working population. This provides a strong consumer base and potential for economic growth and innovation. The Indian diaspora is widespread and influential, contributing to India's economic and political reach in various countries. Persons of Indian origin hold powerful political, managerial, and academic positions across the world. I need not to say that, the Prime Minister of UK, Vice President of US, or the Governor of World Bank, and so on. And many tech companies, whether it is Google or Microsoft and so on. So you find Indians are there. Likewise, in the medicine, they are not behind at all. India boasts of a demographic dividend with huge young working population. This provides a strong consumer base and potential for economic growth and innovation. The Indian diaspora is widespread and influential, contributing to India's economic and political reach in various countries. Persons of Indian origin hold political, managerial, and academic position. I'm sorry, I'm revising it. India is proud to have produced Nobel laureates in economics, literature, physics, medicine, peace, and humanity to showcase knowledge economy. India's achievements in space exploration, such as the Mars orbit mission and the recent Chandrayaan successful landing on Moon's South Pole, and ISRO's several orbiting satellites demonstrate our technological capabilities and scientific prowess of soft power. India has experienced consistent economic growth over the years, attracting foreign investment. According to World Bank, India is poised to remain a buoyant economy in coming years with GDP growth rate above 6.5%. Expanding industries like ICT, digitalization, and pharmaceutical make India an economic powerhouse. India is heading towards a digital economy, digital public infrastructure, and digital literacy. Nearly 74 billion digital payments through UPI, or Universal Payment Interface, in 2022, which many countries want to emulate. India's strategic location in South Asia gives it leverage in regional and global politics. It has strengthened ties with various countries, enhancing its geopolitical standing. India maintains a formidable military force, including nuclear capabilities. This enhances its security and influence on the global stage. Finally, and not the least, India's post-independence political governance and justice institutional structure is sound and congruent with modern nation states. India's democratic system, though oldest, complex, and heavily politicized, ensures stability and a peaceful transition of power, which is attractive to the international community as compared with authoritarian and dictatorial regimes. Next slide, please. Now I look at the challenges which India faces. Notwithstanding significant social, economic, and technological achievements in post-independence India, after an era of darkness of the British Empire, India has serious national challenges to become a global power. We should look closely what our deficiencies are. India ranks 5th in GDP behind US, China, Japan, and Germany, and is projected to be the 3rd by 2027 as per Indian estimates. Even if India reaches 3rd rank after China the GDP gap will remain large. From per capita income perspective, India stands. Now, what I'm trying to say, don't look at the gross figures, GDP, national GDP. You may be at a fifth level, or maybe in coming years at the third level. That does not make sense unless we see how the money is distributed, how the wealth is distributed. And the best way is to look at the per capita income. So if we look at that, it is very shocking. India ranks fifth in GDP behind US, China, I already said. Even if India reaches third rank after China, the GDP gap will remain large. From per capita income perspective, India stands at 128th rank globally, 31 in Asia, and is at the bottom among G20 countries. Real economic progress is determined in terms of per capita income and its distribution, not gross GDP, which is influenced by population size, because we have a large population size, so everyone is contributing to the GDP, whatever small or great it is. But when we look at the per capita income and the distribution, that makes a difference. Second, poverty ratio is, of course, getting lower. Still, close to 200 million people live in multidimensional poverty. Among those 80 million people live on 5 kilograms of free food, which shows dependence of bottom poor on government for survival. I don't think it's a matter of pride that we are giving 5 kgs free. I think it's a matter of shame that such a country which has seen green revolution, and that we are still making people to live on the request of the government. According to 2022 Oxfam report, 1% rich own nearly 42% of wealth, and top 10% earn 20 times more than bottom 50%. So that shows the inequality. I think probably many reports have highlighted that India is the most unequal in terms of inequality, is among the bottom countries of the world. That demonstrates economic mismanagement at various levels. Regional and social disparities along with income inequalities are huge and even critical. Many global and national agencies and institutions rank India poorly on parameters like ease of doing business, fair elections, political corruption, economic and social infrastructure gaps. Investment in crucial human development indicators like quality education and health is not adequate for inclusive development. Despite having a large tech literacy young population, scientific and research institutions, space exploration, and tech achievements, our investment on R&D, research and development, are abysmally low for optimum growth. US R&D funding are $640 billion, China $580 billion, which is 2.5% of the China's GDP, and only $15 billion for India, which is less than 0.7% of GDP. In order to become a knowledge economy, India needs to invest heavily on research and development. If I look at some other statistics, China with 4.5 million research papers, I'm just talking about the knowledge economy, that which is considered by research and development. China, I was reading somewhere, it said that China with 4.5 million research papers published during last 5 years leads the world, followed by US with 4.4 million and UK with 1.4 million research papers. India produced 1 million. Of these 1 million, only a few could reach the prestigious journals. India ranks 10th globally in citation quality. Same is true about patents in India. the bottom line is clear R&D in frontier areas is key to India's ambition to grow as economic and technical superpower. Unless we do that, I think we can't go forward. Then the regional conflict, like this is another problem that we have to look at within the country, what is happening. Regional conflicts like continuing ethnic clashes in a tribal Manipur state, communal violence, and long external boundary conflicts with China and Pakistan present a bad image for a favorable business investment environment. We cannot ignore that. Likewise, the present government faces challenges and accusations of violation of human rights, freedom of press, and secular credentials by some domestic and global media and agencies. These need to be addressed for a formidable global image. Only then we can become a great power. Even to compare, now I'm saying because we largely compare ourselves with China, so where we stand in comparison to China. Even to compare as an Asian power with a competitor like China, India is much behind to catch up. According to Bernstein research report, India's economy is 17 years behind China on economic parameters like FDI, patents, foreign reserve, exports. So we are so many years behind. Geopolitical tension between US and China has given some advantage to India in shifting investments. There is a chance that if we can catch up, that now as in China is involved in some conflict, economic and military with the United States. So the investors are looking forward to India and some other countries in Southeast Asia. But how we cash on this, how we leverage this is a big challenge to the government. India's standing on military power is not too strong against China with high-tech warfare. Well, I'm not quoting a person. This is Praveen Sahani. If someone is interested, look at his work. And it's related to the China relation with. The title of the book is Last War, How Artificial Intelligence Will Shape India's Final Showdown with China. So he says that China is using in its military prowess the artificial intelligence, and we are nowhere comparable to them. So the next war will be of artificial intelligence rather than the conventional war. And he said that if that artificial intelligence is used in the war, then the chances are that we cannot stand longer in front of China if the war happens. That is I'm not saying it's the Praveen Sahni that who has written this book and has claimed into that. So those who are interested may look into this. So before India stands among the political powerful nations, such internal contradictions as I illustrated and illusory claims of an emerging global power need to be demystified and ameliorated. Gurcharan Das, a scholar and political commentator, asserts that India has always had a weak state and a strong society, which means that achieving something better will be an uphill struggle. We can do it, but it's very difficult. Achieving this status requires strategic diplomacy, economic reforms, sustainable investment in education and research and development and innovations. Now, finally, it's time for minutes. I look at India as a soft power. Should I stop here or can I go?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, I will just conclude then. So what I'm saying is that we have difficulty in reaching as a hard power, and there is a so I am imagining India, the potential of India's next superpower as an emerging global power. This includes envisioning a better vision of the country, a way of looking at its challenges and opportunities with new perspectives and solutions. It is about challenging the status quo, taking the initiative to create a new India that embraces the best of its past and embraces the possibility of its future. It also emphasizes to remove regional disparities by following the model of state that stand high on human development indicators. So that's how I imagine that we have to rethink about several strategies which are there. So in the final, I will say that what I find that India's possibility of achieving a global power is through the promotion of knowledge economy. I mean, along with several others, which I've already mentioned, but to me, knowledge economy is the most important thing. And so what is the knowledge economy? Knowledge economy is characterized by the predominant role of knowledge, information, and intellectual capabilities in the generation of wealth and economic growth. It requires strong base in ICT, investment in research and development, innovation ecosystems, metadata analysis. Overall, a knowledge economy places a premium on intellectual capital and the ability to generate, apply, and commercialize knowledge for economic growth and competitiveness. Now, if we look at the Indian situation, the advantages we have, India has a well-established educational system and produces a large number of graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM. This provides a strong foundation for knowledge-driven workforce. India has become a global IT outsource hub known for software development and IT services. India has witnessed a burgeoning startup ecosystem in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune. More than 1 million startups have sprung up in the last few years, making India the world's startup capital. Some of them have become unicorns, which are highly valued entities that could mobilize $1 billion investment. By the end of last year, around 240 startups have gone for major acquisitions, bringing in investment to the tune of $150 billion because of these startups. India is a major player in the pharmaceutical and biological sectors. It has a robust genetic drug industry and a biotech sector. The Indian diaspora around the world includes many highly skilled professionals and entrepreneurs who contribute to India's knowledge economy by fostering global connections and inventive investments. So if we look at all this, so we have all preparedness to become a soft power. Also, the other thing which I might say in brief, another component of India's soft power credential is related to spread of its spiritual and wellness knowledge of meditation, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurvedic medicine. UN now observes Yoga Day. Many educational and health institutions across the world are adopting yoga and meditation towards elevating stress and promoting mental health. And lastly, I will say, to achieve all this, we need a strong leadership. What I mean by the leadership, that we say to realize this great potential of becoming a soft power, India needs a visionary leader, a scientific temper, secular credentials, commitment to deliver on human and sustainable development goals, and a wide acceptance among democratic governments and media. Well, these are my thoughts on India, that how we can you can say, navigate the hard times into the good times and becoming a global power. Thank you very much for giving attention to my views.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a comprehensive, insightful, and thought-provoking lecture. Now I open the floor for the questions and answers. Please raise your hands and please be brief. I cannot see any hand being raised.
Renu ma'am has a question.
Okay.
I was just listening to Professor Aggarwal's lecture. It was very informative and very updated. Recent developments in the India as well as world were all included in it. I just wanted to ask, like, when we say India is emerging as a soft power, so there are happenings which in the world, like in Canada or in Qatar, how do that affect our image? Like, in Canada, we hear president giving some statements after a few days which affect the image of our country. And in Qatar also, our workers are being prosecuted. So these happenings which are there, so do they affect our image?
Well, I don't know that these are a kind of country issues which they face in their own countries. And they try to appease their own constituency. That does not mean that the India is not a soft power. So I think largely our approach has been accommodative. But if people have their own grievances, as I say, to please their own constituency, then they project India as a hard power, not as a soft power.
Okay. And I think now India should change its image, like you was mentioning in your lecture, that we should now focus more on health and education indicators, like so that may change, and it will help us in making our image better.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I agree. Any other intervention or?
Yes, Mansi, please unmute yourself.
Very good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Like I found your lecture very interesting. Sir, I just missed a part when you mentioned about Indian diaspora. So can you just elaborate what you want to mention in that particular topic?
Indian
That was
diaspora, that those who Indian that who are settled abroad, and so how do they think about India and what their contributions are? So that's what we mean by Indian diaspora. That highly technology oriented. So there is a kind of, if not superpower, we can be counted as the great powers because of the Indian diaspora, which are our ambassadors in those countries. Like in India, we have high-tech people, the likewise people of Indian origin or have their roots in India. They have holding very important positions, and so in all kind of Indian diaspora is doing very well.
I got it.
That's the purpose. That Indian diaspora is a positive sign. So which is a representative of India. Okay, that's what we want to do and how we do when we are living abroad and where we are placed. So like in the US, for example, in the IT sector, and even people of Indian origin, like the Vice President, Kamala Harris, for example, is there. And likewise in many Pachori is in Google, and so on. So there are a whole bunch of Indians that who are in leading positions in the world, and this diaspora is doing so well. Second level of diaspora is in the Middle East or in these countries that where people go for work, and I think they have made their own impression there as well. I mean, as we see, there are not major complaints about the Indians that they are hardworking, they contribute to their economy, to their technological development, and so on. So Indian diaspora that way is also a positive sign for India becoming a great power. That's when I look at the Indian diaspora have a contribution.
Okay, sir. That's much. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Diksha ma'am, please unmute yourself.
I see a couple of faces. Bharti, the way is there.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Good evening.
You have a little bit of more gray hair than I.
Oh, yes, sir. I hope it is a sign of wisdom, sir. Kaise bhi aaye, aaj.
Well, just be on the lighter side, I'm saying it. I don't mean.
No, sir. I think I take it with a pride. Sir, my take on this is that when you look at the relevant reports, we find a very crucial, two crucial impacts actually. One is the aspect that when you talk of demographic dividend, the window of exercise is becoming very small because on the other side, the elderly population is also growing. So on one side, this dividend does not turn into a liability. We will need to plan for it because that will have a great impact on whatever our standing may be at the global level. And the other problem that I see is the reduction in work participation rate for women. Even if we are seeing that that more women are participating in the economic sphere, the data tells us that there is a downtrend there. In addition to the downtrend of the cities that we see, that the cities are becoming stagnant. So don't you think that this stagnancy has come even before the peaking of an upswing that should have taken place? That is how I perceive it, and these are certain problems. One is women work participation rate showing a downtrend. One is that the Indian cities are already stagnating. The other being that demographic dividend, yes, we are a young nation, but then when you see it in the context of the increasing elderly population, the window that we had for making provisions for this younger population has already been reduced. Because you will have to diversify your efforts into two aspects now. How do you? I mean, I would wish to know how do you see this?
Well, I think each has their own way of looking. We do get demographic dividend that you can say the growth rates, which were very high at one time, now they are stabilizing or even getting lower. So the population pressure, which used to consume a lot of our resources, and we were not able to, but we have stabilized. Still, I mean, a higher growth rate, no doubt, as compared to several other countries. But we have, I will say, if you look at the two things, quality and quantity. So earlier we were more quantity oriented, and this dividend was not capitalized. Okay, but gradually, as education, skills, and other things have improved considerably through information technology, through scientific temper, and so on. So this demographic dividend or penalty, I will say, which was earlier a demographic penalty, is becoming or translating into demographic dividend as a result of educational, young, middle income people taking jobs and so on, and in different sectors of economy. So you cannot say that it's in agriculture only that by which we were determined. So there is a diversification in the economy and an emerging middle class and melting the lower income class. So there is an uplift, and or I can call it the buoyancy is there. So it's not that stagnant as it used to be when this was a demographic penalty, not a dividend. There was a time that it was a penalty, but now I call it a dividend in the sense that, yeah, India, sometimes I compare, if you know, is an elephant. It's not a tiger. It walks very slow, but it does walk. I mean, that's the way I take it. So our dividend may be delayed, but it is there. So that is the way I look at positive way. I mean, I can see in the negative way also that there are people that who are suffering, who have not reached to these dividends, which we should. But it depends on the political systems that whom you want to, whether it's is a lower bottom that which you want to uplift, or you want to take the top and from there the trickle down. So these two models have been always with us. But we said that, and we have tried both, but somehow I think these have not worked. Because now the present model is the top down, that we invest into the big companies and so on, and then it will trickle down, but it has not happened. Likewise, in the previous governments, they invested a lot into the bottom. They could not reach even the middle income. So somehow the middle path, as India is called, the golden path is the middle path that which we pursue. So that way, this demographic dividend will be there. Second thing, what did you say? Second was the work participation, or?
The women's work participation is on a decline. That is what the data shows.
Women work participation.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting dimension that despite our development, the women participation rate has not grown that way. That has grown, of course, but as it should have, it has not. And that way, I call it is a gender penalty is still there. That we may do a lot on other economic parameters, but we have not really done that much on gender parity as we should have done by now. Still, we find the gaps existing, as you rightly said, and but nevertheless, there is an effort. Maybe it depends on the government, how their priorities are. In some governments, women are priority. In some cases, they are not. I should not say about the present government, how does it look at it, but they look at the top rather than from the bottom approach. So that's why some groups are left out. And in that case, the women definitely, which are at the lower stage, are left out in the model. Because until that you take the bottom up, then only you can reach a certain middle stage. So somehow the women have done well, better than maybe 2 or 3 decades before, but not that much as they should have. That's my concern as well.
Sir, Harleen ma'am has a question. Ma'am, please go ahead. Harleen ma'am.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture, sir.
Thank you.
So I'm not starting my video. मैं घर पे ऐसे ही बैठी हूँ. I'm looking terrible.
अच्छा,
So please fine.
Bharti, is it Bharti?
नहीं, sir, Harleen. Harleen, do you remember me, sir?
Harleen. Okay, Harleen. All right, I'm sorry.
So I'm also there. Very great pleasure.
Good
to
evening,
listen to
ma'am.
you.
Good evening, Renu, ma'am.
Good
So many of
evening,
my
sir.
teachers are there.
Yes. Yeah, I see. Bharti also, yes.
Good evening, sir. It's such a
Yes, good
pleasure
evening,
to
good
hear,
evening.
listen to your lecture.
So after such a long time, you used to teach us social geography. Should I? मतलब then मैं को अपना वीडियो ऑन करूं, नहीं तो सर मुझे भूल गए होंगे.
On कर लो ना.
मैम जस्ट मैं तेल वेल लगा के घर पे बैठी हुई हूँ.
Doesn't
doesn't
matter,
matter.
Ali. You'll always look pretty.
नहीं मैम, I'm looking terrible. मैं पूरा
Arlene,
I was
yes,
doing
now,
something jhadu pocha
I
type,
can see your
everything,
face
dusting,
now,
dusting
Arlene.
today.
Yes, yes.
Sir, remember me?
Yes, I do. Where are you now?
Thank you, sir. Sir, in Delhi itself, Dayal Singh College,
Delhi.
along with Diksha.
Acha, acha, acha,
And
acha.
I'm
Okay.
together. We are together for last,
Very nice,
I
very
don't know
nice.
how many years.
Yes, yes. Everyone
Ji.
seems a little bit older, but I can recognize still. The contours are same. They have not changed.
Hopefully
much.
wiser, sir. Hopefully wiser.
Hopefully, sir.
Yes,
Really
wiser
hopefully.
is definitely important.
Ji.
I might be looking different than you people.
Sir, you are looking as smart as ever. बस grey hairs थोड़े से बढ़ गए हैं और वो तो हमारे
No,
तो
no.
सारे ही हो गए हैं. So understood. So you are
Yeah,
in
yes.
India or someplace else?
Sorry,
Sir, are you in India or?
I'm in India. I keep going to US. Rather, I should have been there, like when I was in Germany for this lecture. So I was supposed to go to US, but then I said I'm not mentally prepared. I will come back to India first and then go. So that's why. Anyhow, I spent almost half year there and half year, as long as I can walk and my mental state is good. So I will keep traveling towards.
Ji, sir, my best wishes, sir. Sir, coming back to the query.
Yeah.
So thank you for the wonderful lecture. You have talked about so many things. I don't know where to start. Sir, you had put that, India spends a lot less in research and development than the other major countries, right? So, sir, don't you think, even if, whatever we are spending in research and development, there is a disconnect between research and development? Whatever we are doing, whatever we are writing, it doesn't reach the policy makers. They don't accept the advice of the researchers or the academicians while making policies or while applying them. Number one is that, sir. Other things, sir, I've been reading a lot of articles on multi-dimensional poverty and inflation. Actually, it was regarding my son's homework only. So, sir, multidimensional poverty, like you said, it has increased. We all know inflation has also, really, it has multiplied 3 times during that COVID phase. And in last 10 years, we have seen it shooting up to 7.3, 7.4 across all states, sir. So, in fact, unemployment has decreased. And like you rightly mentioned, that through food security, whatever free ration is being supplied by the government is obviously not a solution to all this problem. It is just creating, unless and until you create employment for the population, this thing is not going to go. Distributing free ration and making people dependent on the government is no solution. It is, in fact, putting more burden on the government. So all this analysis, sir, is it going anywhere? The government reports itself shows the entire data. So don't you think there is a disconnect, there is a gap, there is a valley rift between whatever is being done at research level and it's not reaching, higher levels for the development process? And how are we going to assume that by increasing research, or quantitative research, I would rather say, is going to lead to development of our country?
It's
That is
a larger question, no doubt. I think poverty has been discussed so much, the multidimensional components, which includes education or health and so on. So we have actually not addressed the poverty issue in India from a social point of view. In my belief that unless we strengthen the societies, their capacities, their potentials, simply economic poverty is not enough to be tackled. And that's why we call it multidimensional poverty. So unless people are in good education or skill, not education, I mean by the skills, in large population may not go for higher education, but if, like in Germany and many other European countries, they invest more on skill development. Like many, I have an experience of Germany that there, I will say 50 to 60% drop out after the high school. But up to the high school itself, they have strengthened them so much that they contributed more than those who are educated in the economy. So this question, which I'm saying, is that this multidimensional poverty is a big issue, that where we should it be through education, through skill development, and so on. So we have looked at the economic poverty that by increasing the income only through certain jobs and other things, rather than human development or health improvement or social development. That itself reduces poverty. That has been my early experience, and as I see in other countries as well. They have invested into the human resources, and then the poverty comes later after you have invested into the human development. So that is one question which I will say that needs to be, you can say, addressed again, although we have been saying it for a long time, that social development is more important than economic development. Because social, as we define, is the social structures. But the larger meaning of a social is also inclusive of economic. In Marxist theory, that they're not separated. So it's a social development means economic development. When we look them independently, then the problem comes. So that's why I'm saying that this multidimensional poverty is a right approach to elevate poverty or rise incomes or GDP growth, etc. And many countries are a good example, particularly I will say European countries are a good example that they have not looked at in terms of education for skill development, for the sake of generating income. Rather, skill development have been emphasized more. So this is the best way of handling the poverty in Indian situation. What was your second question? Was you said
there is a gap between the research and development. Whatever is being done at research level, it doesn't reach the policymakers. They don't work on it. So by increasing our research or putting more funds in research, will it lead to development actually? Do you think?
It's an old question, but nevertheless relevant even today. That the countries which are developed today, they have invested a lot into the research because they understand the issues clearly and scientifically, and then we work upon them. So it's very important to have a kind of scientific temper and educational achievements and so on for the larger development. Unless we invest into this, we cannot do. Well, I think one can debate on this and long questions and answers, but nevertheless, I strongly believe that we have to invest into the skill development as European countries have done, rather than purely on academic. In academic, United States is a good example where they have invested into education. And to me, as I have lived in Germany for long, or have some experience of Europe, so I feel that they have not invested that much. Rather, they felt that skill development is more important. That's why technology-wise, these countries, even though small, but they have done well because they invested into the human development through technology advancements, industrial technology or information technology and others. So technology has been their base. So I think India has a kind of tradition of knowledge economy. that we believe that unless you are highly educated, you cannot contribute to the economy. But my understanding, as I see the world and seen different European countries, my own experience there and in the US, I find that it is the skill that which will take you further. But I'm not saying that education, as you go along for the research and others, and then you make some innovations and so on. And so new technologies, new things, that's where the research comes. Whereas the bottom line is that they are not concerned about research and development. They make use of the research and development which you have done. So for that, you don't have to be a master of engineering or something. So even a high school or a graduate high school is more than enough that you are exposed to that. So that's why Germany, where I have more experience, they invest more up to the high school. And many people don't opt for the college or the university. But look at their technological skill. I think they're still one of the best in the world. So it is the priorities. Like in India, we think we should invest into higher education. I'm not saying that investing into higher education is not good, but our basic education is not good, I will say. Our higher education is still better as compared to many developing countries. But when I look at basic education, where the foundations are of economy, those are not good. Then second is the value system, that we value a PhD or an engineer or a doctor, then an industrial worker who is skilled worker, who contributes to the economy. So this is my own experience I have seen across the world. So we should change our priorities and strengthen, like I know there used to be technology IITs, or that is a advanced level, ITIs, Industrial Training Institutes. This was a very good concept, but somehow we related with our power structures, that if you are an ITI, your status is lower. If you are an IIT, your status is higher. But I will say the lower one is better. He is contributing more to the economy. Okay, I hope that I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Bharti ma'am wants to ask something. Shavanati, should we end the session?
Bharti ma'am, do you want to say something? Ma'am is mute.
No, I just want to say, sir, it was so
Yes.
good today. It reminded us of your lectures and of your wonderful classes, which we miss a lot. And despite, I mean, I'm also nearing retirement now, another 2 years to
Well,
leave.
the teachers never retire.
Yeah, that's true. From the college
I have
teaching,
not
yes.
retired. I don't feel retired.
Nore, you are doing so much work. It's really wonderful. So there's so many things to discuss, and I hope we get another opportunity to come and speak to you and to meet
So
you.
please visit me sometime in Gurgaon. And your friend who has Renu has just, I think, about half a mile away from me.
Yeah. I'm very near to sir.
Yes.
Then, sir, we'll definitely visit you. We'll call you and we'll
Please,
definitely
please.
visit you.
Then all your questions, and rather I will learn from you, not I make you learn. How's family? Otherwise, everything is fine. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Very good to see you, so too, sir. Thank you so
happy
much.
to see many old faces, not in terms of age, but with whom I had a lot of acquaintance and interactions, and who inspired me in so many things. And still I get inspiration, like Diksha is there and Renu is there, and so who have really, I have no words to explain their contribution in my rise or whatever I am. So students always contribute, and that's I think a cyclical way that we contribute to them and they contribute to us.
We are so grateful, and we're very grateful to Shabana for organizing this. And
No.
hope to, yeah.
And I'm also very glad that when I delivered, I was invited in Germany to receive the award, and so they asked me that what should I speak on, and they said that not much on your specialty, rather we would like to see something which is of a general nature. And then I thought that what I have been talking about health or social issues, and not on this dimension, but nevertheless, I made an attempt, and so this is my maiden kind of attempt into this field. But probably because when you grow old or mature, you become a global citizen. You're not confined to India, you're not confined to geography, or you become more of a global in nature. And that's probably happens to everyone. So that's also my maiden attempt into this direction.
Shabana, would you like to add something? Would
Yes.
you like to say something?
Me?
I just want to thank you, sir, and thank you, Surya. So I think it has been a wonderful lecture, and it really taught us so many different aspects, which has been really enlightening for most of us. So thank you, sir. And we will look forward to have you again
All right.
for another lecture. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
It was refreshing for me also to see my old faces and my acquaintances with whom I spent my long years. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
That was the whole idea, that I
Thank
could
you,
see
sir.
some of the old faces that with whom I have been interacting throughout my life.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.